Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my classic USFL franchise. We are now in season 2 in the off season, and I'm excited to play this season because I'm going to be making some more changes to the way the players progress in the game. More on that later. First, let's go over the player retirements. And the good news is the Breakers did not have any player retirements for this from this past season. Most of the players that have retired were aging NFL players. Before I started the franchise, I advanced the NFL rosters up 10 years. And so that's why you see people like Justin Jefferson retiring after 15 years. But fortunately for us, we didn't have any retirements. It looks like about 8 teams fired their head coaches. Of course, we're not one of them as we reached the conference championship game. So lots of changes going on in the league. So looking at the latest mock draft, we're picking 29th thanks to our deep run in the playoffs last year. They have us picking Sidney Sears, right guard, who's a power blocker type guy. Definitely has very good physicals, and his skills seem okay for a run, for a power blocker type guy. We'll have to wait and see. We do have, I think there's many ways we can go in the draft. I think it all depends on what our depth chart looks like. So we have some decisions to make here on re-signing players. Jeremy Hankins, aging middle linebacker, but he's a pretty good linebacker. We could franchise him or let him walk. I'm gonna have to think about that one a little bit more. The no-brainer though, Martavis Moore. We do have, I think, contracts expiring on 3 of our wide receivers. Martavis Moore, he was hurt often last year, but he did make big plays once he came back from injury. I think it's kind of a no-brainer to use the 5th-year option on him. So I'm going to go ahead and accept his option. So I'm thinking we don't give Hankins that franchise tag because of this guy, Stephon Westbrook, who's a very good young middle linebacker. He's an 86 overall. He has star development. So I think we'll be okay with him. I think we'll be okay with letting Hankins walk. I think our biggest priority is re-signing Braylon Minor, as we don't really have any centers on the roster who are under contract anyway. The problem is, if we give him the franchise tag, it's going to be a 1-year contract for $16 million. And I don't think Braylon Minor is worth that, as a 31-year-old center who's only a 76 overall. So I'm not sure using the franchise tag here is the best option. We can probably find a better deal through free agency. At right tackle, I think it's worth trying to sign Darnell Wright once more, as we have 2 right tackles who have contracts expiring. We're not able to. We can only franchise Michael Rivers, so that's not an option. We'll give him a player-friendly offer here. All right, so we were able to sign him. Mario Lopez is an interesting option. He's an 83 overall, and he's a young player at age 26. What would his franchise tag price be? It'd be a 1-year, $28.5 million contract. I don't think we can afford to do that. Corbin Allen came in clutch last season. I'm not sure why he doesn't want to sign with us, as we tried to sign him last season, but I think we have one more shot at it here. What's a 3-year deal? He's only a bridge player. Give him a little bit more bonus. See if he likes that. Nope. We have Jason Minter's contract also expiring. We weren't able to get an extension from him last year when we were negotiating. I want to try one more time here, as I felt he was pretty effective at times. So he's 27 years old, 75 overall. And he rejected that one as well. So I'm going to do one last negotiation with Tyler Dunn. We need the depth at the center guard position. I'll give him a bigger bonus and see what he thinks about that. Nope. So I think we're good here. There's none of these other players am I dying to re-sign or anything like that. So I think it's time we move on. So we're starting free agency. Center is obviously a big position of need for us, as we could not we were unable to re-sign our starting center. Starting to look at some of these guys. I think Joe Trepman might be an option for us here. As he has a fair amount of interest in signing with us. He is 34 years old, but I'm not too concerned about that at this point. I'm going to go ahead and make him an offer. So we do have Rakeem Faulkner, still a tight end, who's a 76 overall, and he's 26 years old. But I still think we need somebody to bring in to compete with them better, as our tight ends behind Faulkner are not very good. So I'm thinking just making a small offer to Eric Dowling right here is worthwhile here. We do need a punter. Not the most important position in the world, but if we can find a possible steal here, that'd be great. I'm gonna go ahead and give Ben Olsen a contract. Offer, anyway. We definitely need some wide receiver depth, as after losing Minter. So I think Sheldon Saunders might be a good good option here. He is 26 years old. So I think it's time to say goodbye to Tim Flanagan. He will regain $1 million on the salary cap by releasing him. He's just a 2-year player. Not sure why we have that contract with him, but this will free up some money. We need some depth at the free safety position. We only have one free safety under contract right now. So I think I'm going to extend Roy Alexander. He's 25 years old, future starter. Just give him a neutral offer. So it looks like Roy Alexander signed. So it looks like all the players we offered signed with us. That's the good news. So being that way, there's really no other players to release to free up cap room, and we're almost against the cap now. We do have 49 players under contract now, and we still have the draft coming up. So I think it's time for us to move on towards the NFL draft, or the USFL draft. I caught myself. So before we go to the draft, we have to choose 3 players to do private workouts with. So let's go ahead and do that. So I think Sidney Sears, who the mock drafts have us picking, I think is a good option here. As he has elite strength. And his skills seem pretty good as well. So I think Mike Lafferty is an interesting prospect as well. He's projected to go in the first or second round. Had a great college pro day and NFL combine. He's pretty much the fastest tight end in the class. And he also did good in the 3-cone drills and the 20-yard shuttles. So I think I'm going to take a flyer on him as well and select him. And I think for my third option here, I'm going to go with Cole Brown, defensive tackle. Seems to have some decent physicals, and he has A play recognition, which is big in my book. So I think it's worth scouting him further. So the Oakland Invaders have the first overall pick, and as you can see, I wasn't able to mod every single graphic on the draft stage here. The game makes it difficult to mod certain things, and a lot of the graphics are on the stage are actually videos, and that's kind of where my expertise ends. But I was able to mod enough so we can see what team is drafting, what pick. So let's see who the Invaders pick. So the Invaders went with Caleb Cohen, the left tackle from Louisville. And the Stars take Percy Becton, right defensive end from Auburn. All right, I'm going to go ahead and sim until it's our pick. All right, and that's our pick at number 29. Let's go ahead and see what players are available. So looking at Sidney Sears, this is the guy who we did the private workouts with, the right guard. It is a position of need for us, as we're kind of shorthanded in terms of guards and centers under contract. And looking at his core attributes, it's pretty good. A's and B's almost all across the board here. His physicals are great. Strength is elite. He had good workouts. Very tempting to take him. And left tackle, Logan Vernon seems like a good player, but left tackle really isn't a position of need for us. Not starting left tackle. Not a big fan of Charles Wadsworth and Demarius Baldwin. Let's see if there's any other options for us. Another player I would consider is Mike Lafferty, the tight end, whom I also did private workouts with. And as you can see, he has elite speed, elite acceleration, and elite agility. His core attributes are pretty good as well. He has A awareness. He has A break tackle, A medium route, A spectacular catch, A run block. And tight end is a decent need for us as well. We have Ed Goodwin. We could always use another wide receiver. He has elite speed. He's the fastest wide receiver in the draft. Why is he dropping? His deep route is a B. His catching is a D. That's probably why. His medium route running is an F. And I think we're going to go with Sidney Sears, the right guard. He's 333 pounds. Position of need. I'm not real crazy about most of my other options here. All right, so we got a hidden development. That's good. 99 strength. That's good to see. And a Philadelphia Stars a few picks later steal Michael Lafferty from me as I was thinking about trading up to get him, but he's gone now. With the second pick, I'm thinking Damon Hodges here, as his combines are off the chart. His skills are somewhat unknown, but it looks to be a good value pick here, and we can use the debt at outside linebacker here. So I think Damon Hodges is going to be our second round pick here. All right, we got another hidden development. So we're 2 for 2 in that regard. So in the next round, I'm looking at Caleb Bonner at tight end here, who, according to combines, is the fastest tight end in the draft. His skills are questionable. He does have a B in deep route running, which is pretty good. Awareness is A to C. Medium route running is unknown, looks to be about average. So I'm thinking this might be the pick in the third round. I think we'll go with Caleb Bonner. All right, we got normal development there. That's okay. So there's a couple of these wide receivers who have been dropping in the draft. Not a big fan of Tyler Patton. He's the strongest wide receiver in the draft, but that's about it. He can't catch. Nelson Burrows seems interesting in that he had the fastest 3-cone drill, which speaks agility, right? And then he has the fastest 20-yard shuttle, which speaks to kind of acceleration. 40-yard dash, he's also potentially the fastest wide receiver in the draft. Now, of course, the downside is, catching might be a bit of a question mark. But I definitely think he's worth taking in the fourth round. I think Nelson Burrows is going to be the pick here. All right, we got normal development, which is fine. All right, we're all the way in the seventh round now, as we didn't have a pick in the previous rounds. Theo Haynes is looking like somebody we can take a flyer out, in the seventh round. He had very good combines, as you can see. He finished first in a 3-cone drill, second in a 20-yard shuttle. Vertical jump, he was high. 40-yard dash, he was in the top 3. So I think I'm going to pick Theo Haynes with our final pick. All right, we got normal development with him as well. And so here's a summary of our picks. We only had 5 picks in this draft. Sidney Sears, I think, is going to be an instant starter. He's a 78 overall. Initially, as I mentioned, we're going to go over how players are going to progress using a tool I created myself. Damon Hodges, second round pick, 75 overall. I think he's a future starter, if not a starter this season. Other three picks I think would be more iffy. I'll probably be more project players. Caleb Bonner, only 65 overall, which sounds like a bit of a dud, but we'll see. Maybe, he'll have a chance to progress, and boom, as with this new progression system, players can boom. The progression is less predictable. So Nelson Burrow, 69 overall. I think he might have some potential. Not bad for a 4th round pick. And then we have Theo Haynes, which we knew was a real risky pick to begin with. He ended up at a 60 overall. So that's where he ended up. Now, one thing we do need is we need a backup quarterback. And look who's available in free agency. Justin Herbert. A 37-year-old Justin Herbert. But I think he'd be a quality backup. And we do have some cap room, so I think we need to sign him as we only have 2 quarterbacks on the active roster. And we need some depth at running back as well. I'm going to sign Calvin Truman, a free agent rookie, just to take a flyer out on him through training camp to see if maybe he can progress. Daniel Swain is another rookie free agent I'm going to sign. And another player I'd like to invite to camp is Marco Jenkins, another rookie free agent. We'll go ahead and sign him. Yeah, so I mentioned a new way of progressing the players. So what I did was I wrote a program that will automatically progress the players on a weekly basis instead of the way the old progression tool worked, where it does it one time at the beginning of the season and that's it. This kind of gives you the best of both worlds, where you can get the weekly progression and still get the unpredictability of the dynamic progression. And so the first thing we need to do is set up our franchise in the tool. I loaded our franchise just by clicking select file here. And then since it's the first time we're using it with this franchise, it says this franchise has not been initialized for progression. Press the button below to initialize. So I'm going to go ahead and initialize it. And it is done initializing. So it now says franchise is ready for progression. So the way this is going to work is we're going to run this tool once a week before every week. And that basically simulates players having practices and maintaining their physical fitness. So I'm going to go ahead and simulate training for the week, and then I'll show you how the tool works and what it actually does. So I'm going to click simulate training here. All right, it says training complete. Iteration pre-1 has been created. That just means one iteration of progression. So pre-1 for preseason 1. Now, if I go to training results here, let me zoom this out a little bit more. I guess that's going to be enough. We can actually see the results of training and the results of them working out during the week. The way the tool works is it assigns 2 new ratings to every player. It assigns a potential rating, which represents how much physical and football skill potential the player has. And it also assigns a a work ethic rating, which it's just like it sounds. It represents how much of a work ethic a player has. The higher the work ethic, the better the player will practice during the week, and the more likely they will be to maintain their physical abilities through working out successfully during the week. Now, every time we click that button every week, it simulates the players going through workouts and through practice. Workouts affect their physical abilities, their physical attributes such as strength, agility, speed, etc. Practice helps them maintain and improve their football-related skills like throw accuracy and zone coverage, play recognition, stuff like that. So that's basically what we're simulating every week. And so because we're doing this every week, we're going to be doing this before every preseason game. That's going to kind of simulate a training camp for us. Now, we can keep track of these workout and practice results, and that can kind of give us a clue of what players are going to be willing to put in the effort to improve their skills. And it also gives us a clue on what their potentials are. We're not going to have direct access to the potential rating of these players because that wouldn't be fair against a computer. But we can use clues on how the players are performing in practice and in workouts to kind of predict what their potential could be. So as you can see, we went through our first week of practice and training, and here are the results of that. For example, Trent Allen, our center, he was kind of lethargic during workouts this week, and he actually lost 1 point of acceleration because of that. So you can see how dynamic this is going to be, how players' ratings are going to be changing every week. Now, if players are injured, they have a chance of missing practice or missing workouts. And when they do, that's going to negatively impact their abilities. Example here is Harvey Blade, our corner. He's injured. Well, this isn't our team. We're looking at Chicago Blitz's roster here. But just to show you an example, Harvey Blade, he's an X factor, but he's injured. He went through light workouts and he was limited in practice. So he participated, although barely. It did negatively impact him. Another example is Mark Cody here, a quarterback. He had an excellent practice, and look at all the improvements he made. His throw accuracy improved by 1, his throw accuracy deep improved by 1, throw accuracy middle improved by 1, and his throw under pressure improved by 1. So a big jump for him there for Chicago. So this is an example of how it works. The tool is smart enough to show you the dev traits from the in-game, even if it's hidden. It's smart enough to know if it's hidden to you. And it'll let you know if somebody improves their dev trait. And when somebody improves their dev trait, it'll tell you. The program's smart enough to know that, and the player will get a bonus to their potential when that happens. And so I can't remember if I mentioned this. The dev traits heavily influence the potential rating of the players, so that's where that factors in. So it doesn't necessarily mean if you're an X factor that you're automatically going to get the highest potential, but the likelihood is higher when that happens, as opposed to somebody with normal development. So this tool allows you to, it makes possible, having draft busts clearly. Players may not always reach their full potential, especially if they have a bad work ethic. So I think this would be an interesting tool to use during the season. And I'll explain more as we go through it. But let's go ahead and take a look at our team, the New Orleans Breakers, and see how our team went through practice. All right, we're looking at the New Orleans Breakers training results for this week, for the first week of training camp, and I see a lot of green, which is a good thing, right? So let's take a look here. Nelson Burrow, the rookie, who we kind of took a flyer on, had a good week of practice. He gained 1 point in release and spectacular catch, which is good to see. That may give us a clue about his work ethic. We'll have to keep an eye on it, though, because anything's possible. You know, even somebody with a good work ethic can have a bad week of practice. Oscar Bird gained 1 power moves. That's good. Now, just because somebody has a good week of practice doesn't necessarily mean they're going to improve something. For example, John Carter right here. He had a good week of practice, but he didn't make any gains. And that's because it could be a couple reasons. One, the player might be too old to gain any skills. Once a player reaches 31 years old, they can no longer make any gains in football skills. If somebody reaches 26, they can no longer make improvements to physical skills like speed and acceleration. So in this case, John Carter's, he's only a 5-year pro, so he likely just reached his full potential in the skill that he was awarded. So that's another reason why somebody may not gain anything. Rakeem Faulkner had an elite practice result, but didn't make any gains. That might be a clue that he's already reached his potential. And he had a good workout result. He had good workouts too, and he didn't make any gains. So that's unusual. So that's probably a clue that Rakeem Faulkner has reached his potential. So that's something for us to keep an eye on for this franchise. Lots of green this week. Trying to think of something that sticks out. Derek Griffey had a good week of practice. He made improvements in pass block finesse and pass block power. That's always good to see from an offensive lineman. Damon Hodges, our unknown development rookie that we drafted. He was our 2nd round pick. He had a good week of practice. He improved his block shedding and his awareness, which is good. Awareness is always a good thing for somebody to improve. Not much red at all. The only one I'm seeing, the only red we had this week was Clayton Patterson, left tackle, had a bad week of practice. He lost pass block power. Now we'll be adding more sorting options to this particular screen. That's one thing I need to add, because I want to see the rookies, particularly how they're doing. I'm trying to find. All right, here's our other rookie, Sidney Sears. So he was our 1st round pick, the right guard. I believe he was a 78 overall. He had a good week of practice, which is good. Pass block power, run block power. And so the program is using their archetypes actually to factor in, what skills they improve on. It's not a guarantee, but it heavily weights things towards those attributes. So very, very, it's a very smart program when it comes to that sort of thing. So lots of improvements. It looks like the team overall had a good week of practice, which is a good thing to see. I'm not seeing many red flags as of yet. Now, one thing about the program is it does allow you to track the progress of the overall ratings of each player, but we don't get to see them until we run at least 2 training weeks, and that's because I don't have the formulas that EA uses to calculate the overalls, and so we have to rely on the game to do that. And the game will not recalculate the overalls based on these changes until we go to the next week. So we won't know how the overalls change until we go to next week and we process our next week of training. And once we do that, we can go to this overall progress report, and it'll allow us to track the changes in players' overall ratings. And we'll see that once we go through next week. All right, now that we did training and practice for the week, I'm going to go ahead and simulate our first preseason game. I don't like playing the preseason games, so we're just going to simulate them. We'll advance to next week. Playing against the Memphis Showboats, who, by the way, is our first opponent in the regular season. We play on the road at Memphis. That will be our first regular season game. So let's go ahead and advance the week so that we can simulate. All right, we won 14-9. I'm going to go ahead and save the franchise. And I'm going to exit out of the franchise because now we need to go through practice again for this week. All right, so now we're going to simulate week 2 of practicing and training. And now, once we do that, we'll begin to see how the players are changing in their overall ratings. So we're going to simulate training once again. And as you can see, it says iteration pre-2 has been created. So let's go ahead and go to training results once again. We make sure and select our team, New Orleans. And as you can see, there's a lot of green, a little bit of red. We'll take a look at what that is. Quincy Anderson had an elite practice. That's good. He gained 2 points in his man coverage. That is good. Melvin Cohen was lethargic in his physical workouts. He lost 1 point of acceleration. Jerry Goldberg, our quarterback, had an elite practice result. That is good to see from him. We need him to develop. He does have star development, so that might be a clue that he has some potential left. He's been in the league 6 years, so he's not going to have age is also a factor in your potential. So he's not going to have as much. He probably doesn't have as much potential as like many of the rookies, especially the star development rookies. But it's still good to see Jerry Goldberg improving that throw accuracy. Damon Hodges, our second round pick, had an elite practice, which is good. He gained 3 points in pursuit, which is outstanding, and 1 point in block shedding. It's good to see that from him. We had Nathan Howard being lethargic in practice. Dante Long, our free safety, had a bad practice, lost a point in awareness there. Sidney Sears had an elite practice. That's another good sign. From our first round pick, he gained pass block power, and run block power. That is good to see. Sheldon Saunders had a good practice catching and deep route running, which is good. Calvin Truman, one of those players that we just signed as a free agent rookie, improved his ball carrier vision, which is good to see. So overall, I think another good week of practice for the team. Now is where we can take a look at the overall progress report for the first time. And if we go to New Orleans. Now what this report shows is what their overall was at the beginning of the year, what the overall was the previous, after the previous week of practices, and then what their overall is currently. Now, as I mentioned, the current overall shown here is not going to include the practice we just did. It's always going to be a week behind. But it does give us it's still beneficial in that it gives us an idea of how each player is progressing over the year. Or if they're regressing. Players can regress, especially if they're hurt and if they have a bad work ethic. So as we can see here, this tells us how the players were improving, after last week's practices. And you can see here we had 5 players whose overall went up 1 point. Sidney Sears went from a 78 to a 79. That is a good sign there. We also had 4 other players. Raymond Melvin, one of our corners, our young corners, he has star development. He went up from 75 to 76. Let's see if hopefully nobody went down. We had 1 player who went down from a 65 to a 64. That was Clayton Patterson. He's only been in the league for 2 years, and he's not hurt. So I think he might have been one of the ones who had it was either lethargic or had a bad practice. So we'll continue to monitor this. Let's go to the next week. All right, we're back in game. I'm not gonna look at the depth charts because there haven't been that much change, but I may after this week reassess the depth charts depending on how big of a change players are making. So I'm just going to advance to next week right here. All right, looks like we lost 24 to 23. Now, see, we have a scenario here. One thing to keep in mind is we're not using XP, and the program, Madden Trainer is the name of the program. It automatically clears out any XP or skill points that are gained by players. So just keep that in mind. We do have a scenario here, so if we gain any XP, once we hit training, it's going to clear out the XP anyway. But let's see what happens here in a scenario. A veteran wide receiver wants to help improve the team. I'm all for that. Coach, I know you're frustrated with Quan George. Dude couldn't hang on to anything last game, but don't give up on him yet. I think with a little help, he can be really good. Is there a specific area you want him to improve in? My joystick's going kind of wacko. We'll let him decide. However you can help. All right, so you got 1200 XP, but like I said, that's not going to do us any good. Because it will just get wiped out. All right, I'm going to go ahead and save the franchise. And we'll go back in our training tool. All right, I simulated the training for this week, and as you can see, Jamison Brown did not participate in workouts or practice this week because he's injured. The longer the injury, the more likely they are to miss practice and workouts. As you can see, he missed. He got downgraded in block shedding and acceleration. Otherwise, we had Rakeem Faulkner, our starting tight end, who had a good week of practice, and this time he was able to make some gain in his speed, which is good. That tells us that maybe he has some potential left in speed, so hopefully he can continue to make gains there. Paul Hampton, good week of practice and workouts, had increased that strength and pass block power. That's good to see there. Justin Herbert, the veteran quarterback, was kind of lethargic in his workouts. He's getting up there in age. He did lose 1 point of break sack ability. Damon Hodges, no gains this week, but he did okay. Sidney Sears, our fabulous rookie guard that we drafted in the first round, continues to kill it in practice, increasing his run block power and his run block. So that is good to see as well. So not a bad week of practice. It's not as good as it was the first couple of weeks. We've had some players that have been lethargic and are having bad practices, but they can for the most part, if they're young enough, they can regain those losses. Let's go ahead and take a look at the overall progress now. We go to New Orleans, and we can see we now have 2 players who have increased their overalls by 2 so far in training camp. And no surprise that one of those two players is Sidney Sears, as he has increased his overall from 78 to 80 in training camp so far. And Derek Griffey, a left tackle, has gone from a 61 to a 63. And we have a host of other players, including Jerry Goldberg, who increased his overall by 1 point. The good news is we've only had one player so far who's lost 1 point in their overall. So a solid training camp, our solid training camp continues. So let's get back to it. All right, we're back in game, and first thing we need to do is we need to cut 5 players. So let's go ahead and do that and figure out which players we're going to have to kick off the roster. We did lose 27-7 last week in preseason, and we ended up 1-2. Not that the record matters. Well, I feel like I'm going to have to choose between Truman and Jenkins here. They're both 65 overall, but Truman has had a better training camp so far. So I think we can just move Jenkins to the practice squad. Now we have a lot of numbers at wide receiver. The two that out of this group that have improved so far in training camp is Saunders and Pritchett. Yeah, so this is a tough decision here, but I think Chad Gills, I think we can move to the practice squad here. Oh, he may not be eligible for the practice squad. Gabe Pritchett, let's see if we can move him. Yeah, we'll move him. We'll come back to the wide receivers. We may want to just keep 5 on the active roster. Let's see if we have other position groups we can subtract from. So we got too many tight ends. This tight end group really hasn't improved that much in training camp. Deontay Hollins has improved a little bit. Showed some improvement. I'm gonna go ahead and move him. Well, let's see if we can move him to the practice squad. We cannot. Tevin Marion or Bonner. So we can move Bonner to the practice squad. He's a rookie. And you know what? I'd rather keep Helms than Marion here. Marion was lethargic in practice at times during training camp. I think I'm going to release him. So that'll be our 3 tight ends there. Let's see, we got a total of 5 tackles. We do not need that. I think we can move Derek Griffey to the practice squad. All right, I think that's all the cuts we have to make now. Let's go ahead and run training for the week. Now I just got caught doing what I told you not to do, is run the training while your franchise is open in Madden. So to remedy that, I'm just gonna have to run another training, and we'll have 2 iterations for this week. It does give a unique name to every iteration. We'll just have to ignore the previous one. Now Not a huge deal, but just something to keep in mind. So I'm going to go ahead and simulate training. I'm out of the Madden franchise this time. And as you can see, it said iteration pre-4-1 this time, since that of a pre-4 one that was already created from when I ran it last time. So let's go ahead and look at the training results. We'll go to New Orleans. So we're seeing some good stuff here, as Nelson Burrow, our rookie wide receiver, had an excellent practice and good workouts. He added 2 to his catching and 1 to his speed. That's good that he was able to increase his speed. Medium running improvement there as well. That is good to see. And Stephen Monroe, who was our backup quarterback last year, who made that tremendous play at the end of the conference game last year, had an elite practice. He made a bunch of improvements. So, I mean, I don't expect him to be competing, with Justin Herbert, but he made tremendous progress in his practice here. Martavis Moore made some improvements. Good to see that as well, with his medium route running especially. Sidney Sears was okay, no improvements there. And Damon Hodges, our other unknown development, did okay. Jermichael Stapleton, our corner, got +3 to play recognition. That's kind of a big improvement there. So let's go ahead and take a look at our overall progress now, and see what's happening there. Still the same 2 players gaining 2 points on the overall so far in training camp. A couple more players joined the crowd of +1s here. And we still have only 1 player who lost 1 attribute, so that's good to see there. Let's go back in game. All right, so we are 1 week away from the first game of the season. Let's go ahead and advance the week. And then we'll run our practice for the first week of regular season, but we're not going to play the game in this video. Let's set our season goal here. I don't think it matters. I mean, we should make the playoffs, I think. We'll choose the draft class. I just keep the default. And let's speak to the media about the keys to winning on opening day. It's opening day this week and a fresh start for every team around the league, and you'll be facing the show. What's the key to victory? I think our defense. Actually, dominating offense. I'm just hoping to get an offensive boost here. Ideally, we establish a rhythm on offense, dictate the flow of the game, and get a big enough lead. What's your main focus? I think the running game. We want to pound the rock. Beat the Showboats and rush for 150 yards. I let the computer game plan, so can't game the system there. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and save the franchise. And let's go back to our training tool and run practice for the week. All right, back in the tool. Main reason why I want to simulate training in this video is so that we can see the overall updates from the previous week of practices, and then we can adjust the depth chart as needed. I want to have as much information as possible to make these decisions. So I'm gonna go ahead and simulate training. And as you can see here, it said iteration reg 1, which means regular season, has been created. So let's go ahead and view the results here. A bunch of OKs. Quan George had an elite practice. +2 to deep route running, +1 to juke move, +1 to spectacular catch, +1 to release, and +1 to catch in traffic. That is good to see there. Alexander Groves, rookie middle linebacker, had an elite practice as well. Brendan Henley, one of our rookie running backs, lost some ball carrier vision, had a bad practice. And our kicker, our veteran kicker, was lethargic in practice, got a -1 to his stamina. I don't know if that really will impact him. And Stephen Monroe, once again with an elite practice, is he going to try and challenge Justin Herbert for that backup quarterback position? He is up to a +2 and 96 play action. The big problem with him, though, is his throw accuracy. That's 17. Sidney Sears stayed the same. And Damon Hodges stayed the same as well. He had a good workout, but did not make any improvements there. Let's go ahead and go to the overall progress. And a lot more green this time. We had some players join the +2 category as Amir Huffman. Oh, wait, I'm looking at the wrong team. Duh. Looking at Chicago. Okay. Well, that's even better. We have a player who has got a +3. Derek Griffey, the left tackle, has gone to a 64 overall since the beginning of the year for a +3 gain. We also have a bunch more players who've gained a +1 to their overall. So that's good to see some steady improvement there. So I think Derek Griffey's going to shore up that left tackle spot, especially if he continues to improve. And we still have just one player. We have one player, looks like, who dropped from last week. Matthew Wilkinson, the defensive end, went from a 76 to 75. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that. So with that, I'm going to end the video as we are done with our off season. I look forward to this upcoming season. Our first game is against the Memphis Showboats. We'll see that game in the next video. We'll prepare for the game, adjust our depth charts as needed. And I appreciate you watching. Be sure and like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.